The New York Mets are reportedly potentially in the market to acquire an ace pitcher who they recently tried to get as early as this past offseason. Plus, we find out what some of the costs are going to be for the higher-end players at the deadline. We're going to discuss that and a lot more next on MetCast. What's going on, Met fans? Welcome back to another episode of MetCast. As always, I am Rain. If you're enjoying this content, make sure you smash that like button, consider subscribing to the channel, and potentially becoming a member as we host post-game lives after every single New York Mets game. So if you want to hear your voice heard on our YouTube channel or Facebook, wherever you're viewing this, make sure to consider becoming a member. Now, there's no secret, Mets fans, that the New York Mets are going to be involved in a lot of different places when it comes to this trade deadline. We've heard rumors from anywhere from starting pitching to help at potentially second base, third base, or even center field. Hell, they're even potentially in the market for some of the higher-end relievers and, dare I say, a closer to close out the eighth inning from them. But now the rumors are starting to circulate, and the New York Mets checked in on one pitcher that I'm a little surprised by, but I know they had interest in him at this past offseason, but now it's coming up that they have potential in him now. Let's take a look. So here's the article from SNY. I believe it was originally reported by John Heyman, but the Mets 2025 MLB trade deadline buzz. The New York Mets have reportedly spoken to the San Diego Padres, of all teams, about one of their aces, Dylan Cease. Now, Dylan Cease was considered an ace and very expensive this past offseason. Reportedly, the Mets contacted San Diego in regard to his availability. Couldn't work anything out. I don't know how close it got. There were no further reports in regard to that. But San Diego has been one of those teams that have always been seeming to be willing to trade from their team to help their current team. So that tells me if the New York Mets were to ever make a trade with San Diego, they would potentially want major league or major league ready prospects, dare I say. But the article goes on to say, July 23rd, 1:10 p.m., as the Mets look to upgrade the rotation ahead of the trade deadline, they're reportedly among the teams who have spoken to the San Diego Padres about right-handed hitter Dylan Cease, according to ESPN's Buster Only. So excuse me, it wasn't John Heyman, it was Buster Only. As noted by Only, the Padres are intent on making the playoffs push, but they would be looking to use the impending free agent Cease to help fill other needs on their roster. And that's one thing that we've just discussed. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if David Stearns ends up being one of those people. I mean, think about it. The New York Mets currently have potentially three third basemen in Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty, you have McNeil who can play over there, and obviously Ronnie Mauricio. Beatty and Mauricio being guys who are interchangeable at multiple positions. But let's be honest, Mark Vientos right now does not have a position on this team. Regardless of him playing third base sparingly, the New York Mets clearly would rather Mauricio or Beatty be in the field over him. Cease has been one of the more reliable arms in the game over the past few seasons, but he put together an extremely disappointing first half this season, something that we just touched on. His numbers are not the same as they were last year, but he's still throwing the ball hard. The 29-year-old pitcher is currently throwing to its 4.64 ERA and a whip of 129, while striking out 139 batters over 20 outings, which is not too bad. And then you have it as of July 5th at 3:06 p.m. The Mets will certainly be in the market for starting pitching ahead of the trade deadline, which is interesting that we're hearing that reporting, because when David Stearns had his interview the other day, he kind of indicated that the New York Mets would not be involved in the starting pitching market, considering they were getting healthy. The Sean Manaea is back. There's Kodai Senga's back. The Frankie Montas is back. You have Brandon Sproat pitching really extremely well at third in AAA, as well as Nolan McLean. So I doubt the New York Mets would prioritize that number one. I think they're going to go for center field and high-end relief pitching, which we'll get to in just a minute. One arm that they showed interest in is the Pittsburgh Pirates right-hander Mitch Keller, according to Noah Hills of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. But I will say this, from the people that I've spoken to, it was kind of a courtesy call. The New York Mets wanted to gauge where the Pirates were at that time, especially if the New York Mets have a significant injury between now and next week that would require them to get an upgrade at the arm. But let's be honest with ourselves here. In the postseason, a 7-game series, you usually use 4 arms, only 4 arms. And the New York Mets already have Kodai Senga, Frankie Montas, Sean Manaea, David Peterson, Clay Holmes, who's probably going to be going to the pen. So if the Mets are looking at the pen right now, you might have that upgrade with Clay Holmes. Brooks Raley returned. So they have arms coming back. The 29-year-old former second-round pick has been spectacular for the Pittsburgh Pirates this season, as we know, pitching well to a 3.53 ERA and a 1.16 WHIP across the league, leading 21 starts. But I will say this, if you go and look at Mitch Keller's stats throughout his entire career, he is a 4 and change ERA type pitcher, and that's what scares the hell out of me. Let's not forget, you're taking a pitcher out of a terrible situation, a situation that has zero pressure, there's no fans at the games, there's no expectations of winning, and throwing him right into the middle of a pennant race. We've seen things like that go bad in the past. Adding a reliable inning eater like Keller, which I don't like that innings eater, quote unquote. I need pitchers who are going to be elite in the postseason. I'm trying to get past teams like Philly, Milwaukee, LA Dodgers, San Diego Padres that we just spoke about. And Mitch Keller, for me, would not be the guy. Maybe you guys think different. Let me know in the comments. Would be a huge boost to New York Mets rotation. Wood has struggled to work deep this year. And that's the arm right there. Dylan Cease, somebody who I coveted this past offseason, clearly not having the year that San Diego thought he would be having. He's the kind of guy where if he gets in the pitching lab, I know it's going to be late in the season, but maybe working with Jeremy Heffernan, which a lot of pitchers have, could turn his career around. He is a free agent, so you got to be thinking too, for somebody to acquire a Dylan Cease, you have to give up something equivalent, probably more than a second-round pick, because let's be honest, the Padres are going to offer him at the end of this year, which attaches that draft pick, that high-end draft pick, to him. So, but if he's traded, he's no longer qualifying offer eligible, so whatever team gets him would have to give up more than the equivalent of a first-round pick to acquire him. But let me know what you guys think. What would you be willing to give up for a Dylan Cease type? I mean, you're probably talking at least one of your top 10 prospects. I would assume out of your top 5, considering you only be getting him for a few months. But it also depends how many other pitchers are available at this trade deadline. We're talking about Sandy Alcantara. You know, his name's been floated out there a lot. Obviously, Dylan Cease, Mitch Keller. It seems that there might be more middle-of-the-road type pitchers available at this deadline rather than there was last year. Last year was only a couple of guys, and you saw terrible pitchers or mediocre pitchers at best going for big-time prospects, top 100 prospects. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Now, let's get to the relief pitching. And we have this from over at MLB Trade Deadline News, and we've known that these guys are probably going to be available, but the Minnesota Twins are asking for at least 2 top 100 caliber prospects to trade for Jarren Duran or Griffin Jax ahead of the deadline this season. I would love a Jarren Duran. He's under control for 2 more years. Check out these stats this year: 46 and a third, that whip of 1.14, striking out the world, 51 strikeouts over that time, and a 1.94 ERA, which means he recently got touched up a little bit because he had a 1.6 ERA and change not too long ago. But 2 top 100 prospects, you're talking about you're going to have to give up potentially a Jet Williams and one of your top pitchers, meaning a Jonah Tung, a Brandon Sproat, a potential Nolan McLean. And for me, that is just too steep of a price to pay for a guy. I know a lot of you guys are going to say, well, let's go get him because he's got a couple more years, and Edwin Diaz has that opt-out after this year. And I understand that way of thinking. That's got to come into consideration, because if Diaz opts out, you have a closer in waiting, a guy who you know close games. So if you could get him for one of those guys, I think the New York Mets need to seriously consider it. Put Jet Williams aside. If you're telling me it's him for Brandon Sproat straight up, I'd have a hard time not pulling the trigger. And remember, fans, you got to give to get. You can't just hold on to everybody. And those are the players that seem to be available right now at the deadline. Obviously, the Luis Roberts, we got to see what ends up happening with him out with the White Sox. The New York Mets have been connected to him, but for me, he's not really an upgrade in center field. Yes, I know over his last 14 games, he's been hitting like, want to say 230, 240, so it's been an uptick, but nothing consequential. Remember, he's got a team option for $20 million for next year and $20 million the year after that. So if you're going to have to give up a top 30 prospect for him, I'd be really hesitant considering where we're at with the Cohen tax. I would like for our money to be invested somewhere else this offseason rather than him, but maybe you guys like him. Let me know down in the comments. But that's all I got for you guys today. If you stuck around this long, make sure you give us a thumbs up, become a subscriber at YouTube, and consider becoming a member as you want to get your voices heard during our live streams. We are going to be coming up with some guests that we've spoken to. We've had many people in the media, so if you want to be guaranteed to get your comments read, consider becoming a member. Thanks so much for sticking around. And as always, let's go Mets.